I'm in education here at Carroll. I want to be a teacher, and so I'm kind of excited about the charter school that you have. But what are you going to do to help the public schools get up to standards? Because that's what I'm concerned about. Yeah, it's great to have these optional schools for students, but what about the public schools?
The rest of
you can't leave them behind. So
absolutely
I'm
not.
concerned about that.
I hope I've been very clear in my support for public education. I mean, I hope that's coming across loud and clear. When we look at our public schools, I look at the cost of education in virtually every place I'm going. And what happens, especially with Republicans, it seems, is it's like those bad teachers are costing us too much money and our taxes went up because of them. Well, folks, if you have 25 kids in a classroom and it's costing $12,000 per student, that's $300,000 per classroom. The question is, where is all $300,000 going to? That's the question that we need to be asking. And when I start talking to superintendents of schools in public education, and how are we going to fund public education going forward without breaking the back of the property owners who are paying property tax in this state? So I said to the superintendent of schools, his name was Mark, I said to him, Mark, how much are you spending per student? He said $12,500 per student. By the way, in Milwaukee, it's over 14. But $12,500, he says. I said, Mark, would you do me a favor? I want you to think of the state of Wisconsin's role in your education system, that the only thing we're going to ask for is documentation that your kids are advancing academically 12 months for every 12 months in your school system. So we're talking about getting the state out of the way and letting the local schools determine how to provide the best quality education to their kids, where the role of the state is still to make sure that we're getting the results that we're hoping for. At least 1 year academic growth for every year in the school system. And obviously, I mean, to me, I'd like to set up some competition and see how much better than that we can do. But at any rate, we're concerned about outcomes as opposed to telling you how to educate. Then we empower. Somebody asked me before, and I said, empower the teachers. Why do you account for the success? Empower the teachers, and empower the local school boards, and empower the superintendents to figure out how to best supply that education. So I asked this guy, $12,500, changed all the rules. The only thing the state does is make sure our kids are advancing academically. How much would it now cost you to educate these kids? Anyone in this audience want to take a shot at what he came back with? $9,000. More than a 25% reduction in cost of public education if the state of Wisconsin just got out of their way and let our local school districts figure out how to educate their kids in a more cost-effective way, empowering our teachers and getting the money into the classroom instead of all of the other things that the government mandates we do. And I'm going to give you just one, this is a small example, but it's a very real example that we just dealt with in our private schools. About 4 years ago, the state came in and said, from now on, you're going to audit all your books. Okay, it makes sense. It's $5,000, and the first year it was up to $10,000 or $15,000, but okay, auditing the books probably a good idea. Last year, they decided that our private schools are going to hire an auditor to audit the audited books. Now, just think about this for a minute. We are now paying an auditor to audit the audited books, and that money is not going where, folks? Not going into the classroom. It's going to deal with a state mandate instead of educating our kids. That's the type of stuff that now that's a tiny example. There's dozens of them like that. But again, I keep in mind the superintendent of schools. That wasn't my number. I actually had him write it because I wanted to have it in writing if I was going to talk about it in public. $12,500 down to $9,000 if the state gets out of his way. And think what can be done with that extra money.